Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Flesh and Blood and Bone podcast. I am filmmaker Kyra Gardner, and I am here with my dad, special effects makeup artist Tony Gardner.
And I am Tony Gardner. I'm still here.
He's still Tony Gardner every episode. I don't know why I don't change the intro. And today we are going to be talking about the 2007 film Hairspray. And with that, we're also going to be discussing things that my dad had done prior, like Shallow Hal with bodysuits, what he was able to learn on that movie, translate it to this movie, and go through the bodysuit process, what it was like working with cast, what it was like working with director Adam Shankman, and then going into some childhood memories that I have of my dad working out in Toronto, Canada. Okay, so getting into Hairspray, it was released in 2007 and they filmed in 2006 in Toronto, Canada. Yeah. And this was directed by Adam Shankman. Now, my dad hadn't previously worked with him on set physically together, but he had done a few gags.
As a director, we hadn't.
Yes, as a director.
We did a movie with the Farrelly brothers called Stuck on You. And there's a musical scene in it, and the choreographer for that musical scene was Adam Shankman.
So is that where you met?
Yeah, but we didn't even really meet him because we didn't have any real overlap in that scene at all. We just went to set that day to watch. It was Meryl Streep and Greg Kinnear doing a Bonnie and Clyde musical with all this crazy stuff going on. And it just, it was really fun. And then we work with Adam's producer, Garrett Grant, on a couple things. And that sort of led to Hairspray.
I see.
But it was all sort of like from a distance. Like we made a pregnant belly for something, and I passed on a job I recommended somebody else for a job that they came to me for something else. So that was my first experience with Adam as a director, and it was really great.
Yeah, the pipeline from choreographers to directors and directing movie musicals is kind of amazing. Like Kenny Ortega,
right?
Adam Shankman, who also directed Rock of Ages, which I was later obsessed with in high school.
And we did something teeny tiny in that one too.
Oh, okay.
Some baboon hand that I think slaps Russell Brand or something.
Yes.
And that was another one. Build it, put it in a box, and they were shooting somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
Adam's background is in dance, choreography, and now he's directing Hairspray. When were you brought on to do the bodysuit for the film? And just FYI for everybody listening, back in the day, if you look at some BTS of this movie, they were called fat suits. That is not the politically correct term. So we're going to say bodysuits throughout this episode. But when we say that, it's adding weight, adding on to the body, because bodysuit can mean several different things. So that's what we're talking about here, because John Travolta had to transform from his regular self into a larger woman. So that's what my dad and his team did. But when were you brought into the process with Adam and stuff?
We were brought in the very, very beginning. And because of Garrett Grant, the producer, he had been the producer on Shallow Hal.
Okay.
And we done bodysuits on that and all sorts of other like transformative makeup kind of stuff. So the idea was he invited me to come in and meet with Adam Shankman and talk to them about Hairspray. And we're usually brought in the beginning anyhow, because we have so much work to do prior to them being able to film. So that we're usually like one of the first people that get hired.
Did they know going into it that John Travolta was going to be the guy?
I think it had almost been finalized by the time that we walked in the door.
Okay.
Yeah. I think John Travolta and Michelle Pfeiffer were kind of like cemented at that point. And then the idea was, if John's going to be a woman, are we following in the tradition of the musical?
Right.
Or the movie. I mean, in both instances, that character is played by a man.
Playing a woman.
Right. And one's a bit camped up and the other one's sort of a stylized reality. And are we going down those paths? Are we trying to make it more realistic? Well, the fact that it's a musical means automatically there's a license to play. But still, the idea of turning this square-jawed guy with broad shoulders into a female was daunting, and the idea of figuring out what he looked like with that much extra weight on was just equally as challenging, because people wear excess weight in different ways. And what we did is, once we had to fly to Florida to do his head cast and his body cast. He was in the middle of, I want to say it was Wild Hogs or something.
That's hilarious, because I was also equally obsessed with Wild Hogs as a kid. I had a portable DVD player, and as a soccer girly, that was always in the car with me everywhere. And Wild Hogs, for whatever reason, I was also...
Wow. He was doing that, and that was all happening out, I think, Atlanta or out that way. But the easiest way for us to get a hold of him was get him when he was home for a couple of days at his house in Florida. So we went there, did the full body cast, did the head cast and all that. And then those things all had to be shipped back to California.
Oh.
So once that got to California, we molded the head cast. And that's really the starting point. That's the foundation for the makeup and what it's supposed to look like. And we did the cast like from here up, so we had a bit of his chest so we could figure out proportions. But we sculpted, I want to say, at least 5, I think maybe 6 different versions of how he could look with excess weight on. One was very like Alfred Hitchcock, where it hung really low. One was really full. There are a couple of variations in between. We did one that was sort of divine-esque as well. And then I remember we took all those sculptures on all those busts out to Hollywood to Adam, and I think he was at a dance studio working on stuff. And we just set them all up on this big, long counter, and we had a turntable, and he could look at each one all the way around and look at it from every angle and figure out what he thought Edna would look like. And I think we took some wigs to put on it too, and we were debating, is he blonde? Is he brunette? What direction is this going to go? Because precedent had been set already, it's like, are we following that? Are we going to try some new options? But based on those original prototype, test sculptures, we were able to figure out a direction really quickly, and then share those photos with everybody so that they all had an understanding of what he was going to look like, and then the character design sort of continued forward from there.
Wow.
But it was all like early stages of Photoshop sort of drawing, on top of him.
I have a few scans of some other mock-ups of John Travolta as Edna.
The big hair blonde and all that. Yeah, and there's a couple of those mock-ups too that were done very divine-esque, with a frumpy house coat and the flat hair, stuff that was very indicative of the original film. And then there was other stuff that was more theatrical. So we tried to offer a cross-section, again, to get people's opinions. I think we actually took the mom from Shallow Hal and grafted John's face onto her face for a concept piece of art as well.
Yeah, speaking of which, you did the bodysuits for Shallow Hal about 5 years prior. Now, when we've talked about Shallow Hal, we've talked about how you had to do this bodysuit for Gwyneth Paltrow to make her look heavier, and there's a bunch of other transformation makeups in there. But when you guys did a makeup test with Gwyneth at a hotel and put her in this bodysuit and the prosthetics, she went into the lobby and no one would recognize Gwyneth Paltrow, which was amazing.
I saw a video of that.
Yes, which I have on my hard drive. You? Yes, I could share some respectfully.
We thought we were like Mission Impossible. We're like, let's go down to the lobby and let's see if people recognize you.
And no one recognized her.
They didn't even pay attention to her.
That's sad.
At all.
Wow.
A dog paid attention to her. And then we were like, go up to the counter, and and we were like giving her ideas, things to do. And yeah, it was a very unique experience for her, because she'd grown up being very much in the public eye for a long time.
Yeah. And when you guys were going through different iterations of that look with Gwyneth's character in that film, you know, the idea was kind of to scale it back because they had lost a little bit of like Gwyneth's face.
Yeah. They originally wanted her to be completely unrecognizable, which we did. And the character was originally written, I think, with like a scar and a couple other things going on. That would be the classic, you know, indicators of unattractive,
quote unquote unattractive,
you know, like the glasses, the girl that takes the glasses off and suddenly she's beautiful, all that kind of stuff. So we were playing around with all that stuff. So the idea was make her anonymous, and then she was anonymous, and the studio said, we're paying X amount of dollars for Gwyneth Paltrow, we want her recognizable. So we had to scale away all that mass to bring her actual real face out more. And then when we did Hairspray, it was another balancing act where it was, we want it to look like a real woman, but we want it to still have a little bit of John Travolta in it. And it was an interesting challenge because John has a very distinct dimple in his chin. And what we did was I had to cover his whole head in silicone regardless, because midday he's got a, you know, beard tone coming through, and that's really not going to work. You can't run out and shave in the middle of the day. But we needed to add mass. John, his cheekbones are actually very defined, and his jawbone is as well. So we needed to fill all that space in and round it out and make it plumper. So in doing that, we made sure that we covered his upper lip and right underneath his nose, anywhere that there was going to be facial hair. And then we covered his chin, but we sculpted the dimple still there, but we made it really soft and more feminine. And I think we added a little bit of mass to his upper lip to bow his upper lips out a little bit, because he's got a full lower lip already. And trying to, you know, basically play around with the classic proportions of beauty and what is attractive on this shaped face versus another. And, you know, there's that whole like triangle.
Yeah, you're supposed to pay attention to that when you're doing your makeup, and I just throw that out the window. I don't even know.
Yeah, and I knew going in that I was not the guy to do his beauty makeup whatsoever. It's like he's gonna look like a guy if I do it, because it's gonna look like a guy did it.
But look how far you've come, because there was also, you've done bodysuits so many times in your career now. And with Marlon Wayans' movie Sextuplets, and he's in a bodysuit as a woman, you were doing Dawn's makeup and pretty good at it.
I did not touch Dawn's makeup.
You didn't?
No, I ever since Hairspray, I'm terrified of the idea of trying to do a beauty makeup soft and make it look natural, because I think in doing a makeup on a man, you need a huge knowledge base in order to compensate for what you're looking at, and just the knowledge of doing it and the expertise of doing it. So on Hairspray, Margaret Prentice came in, and I'd known her since Thriller. And she's amazing with like prosthetic makeup, beauty makeup, all of it, all the way across the board. And she is just a natural with color and paint. So I asked her if she would be involved in doing the application of the makeup and then also doing the beauty makeup on top of it. When I did Hocus Pocus, Margaret and I did Doug Jones's makeup. And she did one side of the face and I did the other side of the face. And then Margaret went in and did the powdering and the eyeshadow stuff that was more beauty related. And I thought she added an extra layer of like softness and just blended the eyes into a very rough face in a really nice way, you know? And then with this one, trying to blend John's eyes into a beauty makeup on fake skin, have the skin look right, and then have it look like she's got a little bit of makeup on top of that, but not like you're layering all this stuff to the point where it becomes artificial. Again, Margaret was the first person that I thought of to do this makeup, and she agreed to go up to Toronto for 3 months. And
cool.
Yeah.
There's this photo of you from Hocus Pocus where it's you and this woman doing makeup on Billy Butcherson. It became a meme at some point when it's like, when I'm drunk as fuck and my bestie like.
And I'm holding the hair up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is she the woman in that photo?
That's Margaret. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
If I find that photo and meme with it, I'll put it in the we'll put it in the video.
Yeah, because Doug's hair hung down to here, so I'd pull the hair up, and then Margaret would go touch up around the eyes.
It's a great
That's
meme.
so funny.
That's so cool that you had known her for so long and then got to work with her on this.
Yeah, and she's really nice. So basically, we were allowed to take. It was myself, Steve Prouty, and Margaret Prentice, and from the U.S. And then we had local costumer, and then John had a woman who he liked to work with, who does hairstyling.
Oh, okay.
And she also is really great with period stuff and wigs, and she works with Tim Burton and a lot of different people. And her name is Yolanda Toussaint.
What an
And I'm
awesome
sure I got
name.
that name wrong. I'm sorry, Yolanda. But the idea was John was obviously going to have to wear wigs the whole time. They already had a working relationship.
Okay.
Perfect fit there. And then we were just working with her to figure out designs for the hairstyles so that we could make John look. We had to make John look younger, and we had to make John look female, and we had to make John look overweight. So it was like figuring all that out. But we wanted to keep his normal eyebrows.
Oh.
Because he had other stuff he had to do during that show.
Wild Hogs, you know what I mean?
So, but I mean, he did like a musical benefit for Tony Bennett and a couple other things while we were up there filming. He'd have to disappear and go do that stuff. And so we didn't want to change any of his normal stuff. He agreed to buzz his hair for us, which was great.
That's awesome.
Saved us so much time in the mornings, and I think kept him cooler too, because honestly, he was covered in prosthetic suits or prosthetics, silicone prosthetics, from his ankles to the tops of his temples.
That's awful.
So his only heat vent was really his hands and the top half of his head.
Which is in a wig anyway.
Which is in a wig, but Yolanda, they were all lace-based wigs,
That's
so they were
nice.
ventilated. So you got a little bit of air and heat and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts. How much prep time did you have?
We had a few months, and a lot of that time was spent with the body figuring out what shape we were going to have it be, because we started out copying what we'd seen with, Divine and everyone else, and it's very much sort of pear-shaped, and John had this vision of a very Rubenesque person with a tight body that when she danced, you could see all that movement happening. So the idea was, how do we build an infrastructure that like locks onto his hips so all the little movements come through? And we had Linda do a bodysuit that literally like fit really tight on his hips, and the bottom half of it did, and all the movement translated through. And then we had to do the same thing for the top. We ended up with different versions for different things, but we tried to keep that so that he could breathe well through that as well, and there'd be some airspace in it in spots, because there's a lot of movement going on, and there's a lot of heat coming out. So we had 3 suits for him to rotate through during the day, because
during one day?
Yeah, because you're going to sweat, and if you work half a day and you break for lunch, you're not going to get back in a wet suit.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so we'd have a dry suit for that. And then if there was a day where there was a heavier morning or a heavier, later in the day sort of dance scene or whatever, there were spares that he could change through again. And then we had to clean them and then wash them and dry them and have all of them ready for the next day. So our day was really
Always
long.
going.
Yeah, and the makeup started several hours before.
Yep. First ones to get in, last ones to leave.
Besides Teamsters, yeah.
Don't even get me started. But yes, the makeup team, that's your motto. First one's in, last one's out.
Yeah.
Speaking of John Travolta's hips, that man knows how to shake and shimmy till the cows come home.
Yeah, he's so talented.
He's dancing, especially that final number. He's in this red sequin dress with these yellow tassels. I assume you worked hand in hand with the costume designer as well to really get his movement through. And he's really shimmying.
And that dress was heavy. Rita Radic was the costume designer, and she really pushed us.
Oh,
in the best way. It was always a challenge. She's like, I want to show a little more cleavage here. I want to do a little more of this. And I want when they're dancing in the backyard, I want the satin to be skin tight over her rear end through all these moves and stuff. So we were always, working towards the goal of how much of him can we actually show, but how can we also make it manageable so that John can get in and out of it and get breathers and get breaks when there's no dance stuff going on, So Rita really kept us on our toes.
Oh my gosh.
But that dress that he wears in the very end, that with that beaded thing over top of it, the short version's beaded, the long version's beaded. It's beaded all up here. The beads were all super heavy. That dress weighed, I don't know, at least 50 pounds.
On top of a bodysuit already.
Yeah. And he moved through that like it was nothing. I was always in amazement that not only was he wearing all that stuff, but then he was moving in all of it and performing at the same time. Like with the personality, he's acting through all that stuff at the same time. I was just constantly impressed. I remember he had a director's chair and they had one tube of the air conditioning. They went up and under his chair and just blasted straight up. And then when we were in locations that were warm, there was a tent, and it wasn't a warming tent. It was a cooling tent where he could go and cool down. Because all he could do is take off if he's in his full thing, all he could do is take off his shoes.
That's crazy.
To relax and get a little bit more skin in front of air.
So a lot of times, like with Jim Carrey and The Grinch and that amount of prosthetic but obviously there's added hair and things like that.
Yeah.
As somebody who does this for a living, would you equate that amount of suit and time and energy to something similar like John Travolta as Edna in Hairspray?
I think they're different in a lot of ways, but the whole idea of having a changed shape that you have to be aware of going through doorways and everything else, and then different sense of mobility, or it holds your legs in a different position, having to compensate, or holds your arms out, having to compensate for that and remember that you are a character of a specific shape. I think that's where the similarity lies. But like Jim Carrey had dentures and contact lenses.
True.
And his ears were covered and his nose was covered.
His nose?
So he was completely like mouth breathed through tunnel vision and limited hearing and no sense of touch, where John had his own hands, and his own his own eyes, his own teeth, everything else. So it wasn't there wasn't anything that was really a challenge. I think it was more about being able to focus your energy and plow through a performance with all these extra sort of obstacles as part of your daily routine.
Like 50-pound beaded dresses.
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing that really impressed me about John Travolta was the fact that he was just as committed at the end of 3 months as he was on the very first day. Like he'd sit in the makeup chair and he'd square up so he could get the neck lined up, because the makeup was multiple pieces, and get that down and squared away and glued down. And once that was right, and he had an eye for the center himself, and he had an opinion, and it was great because it was like we were all a team, and we'd get that down. And then from that point on, it was more relaxing because then Steve and Margaret could do their halves. And it didn't really matter if he was tilted one way or another. And but just his focus was consistent the whole way through.
That's cool.
Yeah. And he was respected and treated well and had so much energy for everybody. It was just really great.
That's great when somebody's so consistent too, and like just a team player through the whole thing, because it's easy to get sick of it very quickly or become overstimulated or frustrated.
And production was really good about being aware of what his needs were and what, obstacles, what challenges they were putting in front of him. So they even rewrote some of the script so that, like that big dance scene after they come out of Mr. Pinky's.
Yes.
It's nighttime and we're in Toronto and it's cold. And all the dancers have on all these big parkas and John's got on this bodysuit. So he's totally fine.
Yeah.
And that was why they made it a nighttime thing, because they knew it would be a cooler temperature for him and he would be okay. And Nikki Blonsky, who played Tracy, was up for anything. She was great. Cool. She and the dancers would all have these parkas on and they would all get in place. And then once it was time to shoot, there'd be this wave of people running through as coats came off, and they'd take all the coats to the side off, out of line of sight basically. And then all the dancers basically warmed up their way into the temperature that they were in.
I see.
But the fact that Adam Shankman and everybody changed the script so that John would be more comfortable, I thought was really impressive.
Yeah. Seems very collaborative all the way through.
Yeah, everybody wanted it to be really good.
It was really good. I rewatched it the other day, and I haven't seen this movie in 10 years, and I totally forgot how obsessed I was as a 10-year-old with this movie. I still know every lyric from every song.
Really?
Yes. It's crazy. I don't know if you remember this, but I remember. This is very random core memory. But you were sent a scene early sometimes. Like, do you remember this? Because there's the dance sequence, Zac Efron singing, and it's the scene where Tracy like borrows Seaweed's like dance move to get on the show.
Uh-huh.
And you were sent that way before the movie was released. Do you remember that?
I received a couple of things in advance, and then while we were filming, I received some of the music too, like the rough recordings. And I got used to the rough recordings, not the polished up stuff. And I thought that both were really great, to be honest. But I appreciated being in the loop on that and part of a big collaborative group of people.
I became obsessed with that song, even though actually now listening to it as an adult, it's not appropriate for children. And I remember singing it to school, but nobody knew what I was talking about because this movie hadn't come out yet.
Right.
Yeah. And I was just like, it's this movie. You're going to like it. Zac Efron's in it. And at the time, High School Musical had came out. Zac Efron was prime Zac Efron. We were all gearing up for High School Musical 2, which I guess he probably went back from filming High School Musical 2 to Hairspray, like back to back, because it's like 2006 High School Musical, 2000, and then Hairspray, and then the year after is High School Musical 2. The year after that, High School Musical 3. The year after that, 17 again.
Wow.
So
good for him.
He was a working man.
Yeah, big time.
But I just remember seeing stuff early and then watching it again as an adult. Just, it's so good. The production design, the costume design, the choreography. It's so good. And I also was like shitting myself as a director because I was like, how do you time everything so perfectly? Because it's one thing to be a choreographer and choreograph a scene. But then when you're filming it, the continuity is so important, and that timing, like I literally, like my brain hurts just thinking about it.
They had multiple cameras too. So, I mean, they had different angles of everything to cut to. But I think that's just more footage to catalog and log and be on top of.
Yeah.
So hats off to the editors.
I was honestly surprised it wasn't nominated for like Oscar stuff in terms of like even costume design, makeup too.
Production design on it's amazing. I mean, it's a period film and everything is flawless. You don't look at any, being on those sets, you never once felt like you're on a set. You felt like you'd stepped back in time. All the little details were there all the time.
Speaking of set, were there days that you got to come that wasn't just days that John was working and you could kind of watch some fun things happening?
We were mostly just always with Edna.
Always with Edna.
Always with Edna. Everybody thought we were part of his entourage, like permanently.
Oh, wow.
Because we were literally always with him.
Wow. That's funny.
Like Amanda Bynes came to me and said, "Can you ask John Travolta to sign this DVD?" Because everybody just assumed I was part of his camp.
I forgot that. I forgot that you had told me that.
Yeah.
No, did you get a signature?
I got it signed for her.
I love that you got Amanda Bynes an autograph from John Travolta. That's so funny.
But all the cast was great. To me, like the favorite person to just watch work was Allison Janney, because her character is just so like snarky and she's so good at it, and she has an amazing voice too. And I remember telling her, I'm like, I could listen to you yell at people all day because it's just she's so good. It's
so funny when Penny gets caught at Tracy's house and she was like, "You're never having anything," and she's like, "Without this show I have nothing," and she goes, "Having nothing builds character."
Yeah. And then she says "Toodles Edna" or something like that.
Toodles Edna.
Yeah.
She's so good. And it turns out she's a doomsday prepper. I never caught that at first.
No, well, that was the big thing back then, was bomb shelters.
Oh yeah.
So it was all about the potential nuclear holocaust.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah. That's why when they're in there, she notices a language book on Russian. It's like, if the Russians win, we're gonna be able to talk to them.
We'll be able to talk to them. And there's a gas mask, things like that. Yeah. And Amanda Bynes, Penny is like, "I don't know why this is here, but whatever."
Yeah.
Speaking of cast, this was a big deal at the time as well, because Nikki Blonsky was casted from Singing at a Cold Stone.
That's where she worked, yeah, and she auditioned. And I think they went back to Cold Stone to tell her she got the part.
That's cool.
While she was working, which I think is amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see like an unknown actress at the time.
Yeah, she was great.
You know, do you have any of your like do you have a favorite memory from set?
Just the oddest stuff, to be honest with you. Like, I remember once we were in the apartment and Zach was there and John and I forgot who else was in the scene, but they were hanging out. There was an area with like a couple chairs, like a lounge chair and whatever. And he's in full Edna and they're both in full thing. And he's sitting back with his legs crossed like this. And he and Zach are deep in this conversation about airplanes.
Okay.
And it's like the visual did not go with the conversation. It was so funny. And it was just like this genuine, like, you know, moment that it was just fun to see. And then John sometimes would do different characters in the makeup. And he had this one Italian woman who had interviewed him, and he really loved the energy that she had and stuff. And he was like showing us how she moved and how vibrant she was, and that was pretty funny. But really, like most of the time in the trailer, we were watching movies. We had a TV set up behind him, so at an angle, so that when he was in front of the mirror, he could look into the mirror at the TV behind him, and then we could watch it as well. So we were picking movies, and we were picking weird stuff sometimes because, in honor of John Waters, we were trying to find stuff that was sort of retro or 60s or 70s, really strange kind of stuff that was fun. Cool. Obviously, because you have 2.5 hours to kill in the trailer, and most of the time we'd be fairly silent while we were working. So we ended up catching up on a lot of wacky movies.
Yeah, definitely played Pink Flamingo, you know?
No, we didn't watch any of those.
No. And John Waters has a very John Waters type cameo at the very beginning of the movie. He's the flasher next door.
That was fun to see. Yeah.
So that was cool. Were you there that day that he was on set?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Then I think any of the days where they were doing the dancing, just watching that and watching all the precision that went into that. And Zach Woodley was the choreographer, and he was also set to be John's dance double if there ever needed to be one. So we had done measurements on him and done a head cast of him and everything else.
Wow.
And never once even opened the boxes that stuff was in because John was off and running.
Wow.
But getting to know Zach was great because then watching he and the other choreographers on set putting the whole thing together was really great. And then the way this industry works, Anne, who was the choreographer for Hairspray, directed Hocus Pocus 2. So there's just, and Adam Shankman produced it.
Yes.
So there's like, you know, the longer you're in this industry, there's just overlaps that happen during the way. And it was really fun to see her then and her now and watch her grow as well. And I think those are the experiences you enjoy, is just people being people. You know?
Going back to having had experience at this point prior of making a bodysuit, transforming a woman's body, what was the differences? Like, you know, it's a 5-year difference between when you did Shallow Hal and Hairspray. Was there any techniques you learned on the bodysuit that you applied to John's?
I don't know that the bodysuit concept was altered all that much. I think it was really more about the prosthetics, because Gwyneth Paltrow's makeup was all foam latex, and same with the woman who played the mom. And it's really light and you can sweat through it, and it basically soaks up all your sweat, to be honest. And then when we got to Hairspray, wanted to work with silicone because silicone is translucent and it reads like skin, it photographs like skin, it takes makeup like skin, but it doesn't breathe at all. It's like gluing a piece of plastic to somebody's head. So the water builds up underneath it, the sweat, and you have to kind of roll it out of the eye areas or out of wherever there's an opening, where there's a gap where you can get it out, because otherwise it sort of
You're like a raisin all day.
It's very much like a sauna suit.
Wow.
On your head.
Did he probably lost a lot of weight by the end of the show?
I think people that do stuff like this lose a lot of weight. When we did Swamp Thing way back in the 90s, we learned watching the stunt guy who wore that suit that he lost almost he could lose up to 5 pounds in water weight.
Whoa.
A day. So at the end of every day, he would have like this giant bowl of pasta and beer to put weight back on for like the next day.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, because he knew he was just going to sweat it back off again.
Did John do anything similar to like keep?
I think John has a really good chef and he's really well aware of his diet, and he really, really knows how his body works. I think he was really on top of that the whole time.
That's good.
And, you know, we tried to stay on top of keeping everything clean and dry and ready to go and having options. We didn't want to put gloves on his hands to bulk out his fingers or his forearms at all, because we didn't want to put him in gloves that he would be sweating in. You know? We wanted him to have the sense of being able to touch stuff and know where it is and not having to deal with all that. I think it would have slowed things down too. So we tried to be as invasive, as least invasive as possible to his daily routine, but still maintain the look of everything.
Yeah, it's wild. The very first shot of Edna in the movie is a shot of her in slippers walking out, and then the camera booms up or jibs up, whatever. I confuse the two all the time. It moves up, you know, it's on a crane or whatever they had, a Fisher dolly. Okay, guys, I'm sick of being bullied by film bros on this podcast. So, but you her feet, her calves, and then she's got the dress, but then her face. That's you know, it's
a great reveal.
It's a great reveal, and also like the feet, they look like real feet.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
We had people actually ask us on set who gets to shave his legs every day. We're like, They're not his legs. They're bigger. You know, they're foam latex. They connect with overall straps. You want to see them?
Yeah. Also, like, why are you asking about if he's shaving his legs, weirdo?
Yeah. But it was great. It's like people trying, you know, it's a backhanded compliment, obviously. Like,
yeah, they can't tell where the work starts and where his body starts. So that's cool.
I cringe, though, when I watch it now because there's certain scenes or shots where I wish we could have had a minute to reset something, because he's doing a lot of moving and then he's stopping and then it's a very dramatic moment. It's like, oh, if we could have just stopped there and then they could have changed the angle a little bit. We could like cinch up the legs because, you know, you dance in clothes and they shift around.
Right.
Same with like the legs that he's wearing. And they are literally on suspenders.
Crazy.
Underneath his upper body suit so that they stay tight to his waist. But if you're running through a backyard and kicking and doing all this stuff and then you slow down and you sit on a chair and put your legs up, it's like the knee could be a little higher.
Oh, right.
Stuff like that.
Yeah,
you know?
the sequence in the backyard and then she's on the chair. It's hard because you're fighting, like doing shots more in sort of a oneer, so to speak, to condense on coverage, but then the downside is you don't get to have those moments to like reset pieces.
Yeah. And you don't necessarily always know what the camera's looking at because we don't necessarily always have a monitor where we can see it.
And maybe you don't always have a shot list or lots of other things.
Well, they did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
You didn't, though, because they don't give it to you?
I don't think that, like, for they've got it all figured out as far as choreography. You know, we're waiting to see
what it's.
Yeah, and our focus is always really more here. So we're assuming, oh yeah, the frame is this. And then it's like, no.
Nope, we see the whole enchilada.
Yeah, we could have run in and fixed.
Oopsie.
Shimmy that up a little bit.
Shimmy that shimmy, girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
Like if we do an effects movie, it's storyboarded and we know what the shots are.
Right.
And it's all planned. But if we're doing like a drama and somebody's getting an idea for a better angle, or we can actually follow them through on a Steadicam and keep going. It's like, if it's a Steadicam, we're not going to see what the feed is.
Nope.
So we don't know.
What I did appreciate too is like in creating a heavier character that, you know, there is a lot of wardrobe where her neckline is higher and stuff. But then there's also that when she's feeling spicy and there's this cleavage and she hoists up her boobs and then goes down to the joke shop to like see her husband, Christopher Walken. And it was nice because it's just like... And
her arms are bare.
Yeah.
Her legs are bare.
So much to do. And fake boobs. No.
And the dress is really form-fitting.
Yes.
It's like everything under it shows. So it's like make sure everything's connected and lined up. But then he's doing these big, broad movements, like picking up a chicken and throwing it. And he's wearing arms that, you know... I think for that one, we had arms that went from here up because they were the cosmetic arms, covered his completely. And there was a connection point. And it's like, we need to make sure that this all stays connected when his arm comes up and back down and his shoulder doesn't buckle oddly. And at other times, you know, when he's walking down the hall, wanting to make sure that everything's moving with him and the waist is staying stationary to his torso so that you're seeing the hips move against something.
Yeah.
It was all really tricky, but Rita Rack, the costume designer, was really great to work with. And we would have fittings and we would talk about stuff because we were all up there and scenes that hadn't come up yet, you know, we'd have fittings with the bodysuit. And even when John had to do this Tony Bennett tribute at some studio downtown as John Travolta, full, you know, black suit and the whole deal, and sing a song. I remember we took a bodysuit and Rita brought a couple wardrobes, and after he was done doing that, in his dressing room for that, we did a fitting because time was so tight for everything, and she wants to make sure it fits and looks good. And so does he, and so do we. So we would just grab the opportunities wherever we could in order to guarantee that everything looked as good as possible.
Yeah, and it looks really great, you know. I think there's a difference in seeing, the foam latex with Gwyneth and seeing what silicone can do.
Yeah.
Like, I think you guys like did a great job of also like growing as artists and like really figuring it out and pushing the boundaries, because you're not just like always hiding, the larger character in as much clothing. Like Edna gets to be like a real woman, and
Right.
she gets to like be busty, and there's even a scene where John Travolta's in the changing room and you see her in like a corset thing, and
Oh yeah.
you really just like, it's not restrictive. That makes it feel not bad, but just like, oh, this is a larger person, so we can't, but like,
And I forgot about the changing room. Yeah, we had a whole separate torso for that was silicone that literally zipped up the back. We knew in discussing with Adam what the shots were that was just going to be a reveal from the front.
okay.
So we're like, let's make something that's the right weight, the right thickness, made out of silicone so that it looks like skin. And he was going to, we had a body cast of him with his arms like this because he's going to move mostly in this axis to like close the drapes and stuff or cover up. So, because we want to sculpt the shoulders so that they wouldn't buckle. We'd done a gymnast for a commercial a long time ago that was a big guy, a big bodysuit on a little gymnast, and we'd learned a lot about movement from that. But we made this thing with a corset inside it so that it would support itself, and it had the cleavage sculpted in it. And we had it set up on a stand. It was almost like a surgical thing. John could walk forward and into it. We'd close up the back, zip it up, put the neck flap down from his makeup. Then the underwear would go on top of that. Then he could walk a few more steps to the location, the booth, do that shot a couple times till he got it. And then he could stand there, and then we could just get everything off of him because it was over 100 pounds.
Oh,
it was weight appropriate.
Wow.
And
heavy.
Yeah. And looked like skin. So,
it looks great.
Yeah. And it's just for that, and it was just for that, literally that one shot.
Wow. And they could have chosen to like just not do that shot, right? Cut.
Yeah, but they wanted to do as much as they could to show that this was really a person.
That's cool.
Instead of this is somebody wearing makeup. John really wanted to like lose the man part in it.
The man.
Which is really challenging because he's got big shoulders.
Yeah.
So you build this up and then you cut to a waist, and it's like, how much do you compensate with hips in order to get it Rubenesque? If your smallest parameter is the width of his shoulders, you can't go any smaller than that. How do you work with that to create what you want?
At Mr. Pinky's, there is a line that she is a triple E in her cup size. Did you guys go off of that, or that's just the song?
No idea.
We don't know.
We don't know what cup size it was.
It's not that we need to know. It was just, I was curious because it is mentioned specifically. Yeah. I'm not asking for any other reason.
It's just a script line.
Got you.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But the funny thing is there was an underwear store in Monrovia called Wizard of Bras, I think.
That's awesome.
And it had all these weird old retro bras and stuff from that time period. And at a certain point, we're like, do we just go buy a bunch of those to like fit on the sculpture? And then it was so rushed, we didn't really have the time. And we knew Rita was going to come up with the look anyhow. So anything that we did was just for our own
sanity and seeing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You've spoken so highly of John Travolta this whole time and how it was a positive experience with him. My childhood is like riddled with mementos from this movie because the cast also was like so kind. My dad is the best like dad, and coincidentally most of this cast are people I was obsessed with. I watched the Amanda Bynes show all the time. I had a crush on Danny Zuko in Grease, and obviously had seen High School Musical and Zac Efron. And so my dad was very nice enough he got a signed copy of the Amanda Bynes show from Amanda Bynes.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then Zac Efron signed High School Musical DVD for my sister and me. And I freaked out because on the DVD he said, "Hey, cutie." And I was like, oh my God. Zac Efron called me cute. You know, I'm 10 years old, but it could still work. And then John Travolta, how did this even actually happen? Because I have no idea. You got a copy of Grease signed by John Travolta for me,
right,
while you were working on Hairspray. But it's in this amazing leather T-bird jacket slip.
Yeah.
One of a kind, signed by John Travolta. How did that even happen?
I don't even remember where that case came from.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember when you called?
Yes. So here's the thing, guys.
I was at work doing a makeup, and my daughter called.
Did I call you?
I think so.
Oh, maybe I did.
Because I was doing your makeup.
Oh, okay.
And someone said, you need to be doing a makeup. Let me have the phone. And they talked to you for a while.
Yes. So to give you some backstory, I was 9 when they were filming Hairspray. And for whatever reason, it was a big deal that my dad was going to be gone to miss my 10th birthday, because I made it such a big deal that I was turning double digits. And I'm just want to take this opportunity to apologize to you, because I don't know why I was so like angry about that.
Oh, it's double digits. I think that's why you called.
Yes. And so it was my birthday. I think it was on my birthday, and I had called you.
Or I called you. I don't remember.
I think you called me.
Called you. I called you to wish you a happy birthday.
Yes.
And then you wanted to talk for a while. And that's the point where John said, give me the phone.
He asked for the phone because I was taking you away.
He's like, give me the phone. And then he talked to you for a while, and then we just kept working on him.
Yes. So I guess now it was to shut up a very talkative 10-year-old with undiagnosed
No, he heard it was
ADHD.
your birthday.
Yes. So despite my dad being gone for my birthday, my birthday present that year when I turned 10 was talking to John Travolta on the phone, which was amazing. And I was so excited. But unfortunately, my nerves got the best of me. I don't think I barely said anything.
Yeah, he did most of the talking.
Yeah. I vividly remember I said, hello. He goes, hi, Kyra, it's John. Didn't say anything. And he goes, I hear it's your birthday. Yeah. He goes, well, happy birthday. And I said, thank you.
Then he talked for a while.
And then he's like, I bet you're missing your dad, huh? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, we're taking good care of him up here in Toronto. Don't you worry. And he just kept talking because I had no idea what to say, but I was so stoked. And then, of course, like as soon as the phone, he handed you back the phone, and you had to go. So I said, bye, I love you. And then as soon as I hung up the phone, I screamed so loud, and I ran downstairs to Mom on the couch, and I jumped on her, and I go, I just talked to John Travolta. And I just, looking back at it now as an adult, I'm like, you couldn't have said anything on the phone other than like, yep.
Yep.
But still talked to him. So
yeah,
it was a very good birthday present. Thank you, Dad.
Yeah,
because I really loved Grease, and so I just have all these like great memories, not even from being there for that movie, but you were gone a decent amount of time, so
yeah,
it was just like
several months.
Yeah, so it was very sweet that you did all these things for us, like me and my siblings, to just like try and
stay connected somehow.
Stay connected, and also just like you do things that would make us super happy, and that's really cool because you didn't have to do any of that. And also to speak to the cast too, like they didn't have to do any of that, like sign all that stuff. So it's very cool. And now everybody's like grown up and off doing their own things. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Nikki Blonsky's on TikTok.
Right.
Yeah, I tried popping in one of her lives one time because she does lives a lot. And I was like, hey, Nikki, it's Kyra, Tony Gardner's daughter, because she signed something for me too.
Right.
And she read the comment and she goes, no, Tony Gardner worked on the movie. I don't think you're his daughter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, oh, no. I was like, no, that's really my dad. And then she just didn't respond anymore.
That's hilarious.
So Nikki,
does he
it's
think
me.
you're still 10?
I guess. I'm like, I'm still his daughter. Like, also, I can be online. Like,
That's so funny.
it's so funny. So every so often I'll like comment because I'm like, come on the podcast, you know, Nikki Blonsky, come on the podcast. Amanda Bynes, whenever you feel like you want to be on a podcast, we're here for you, girly. Really, any of these people. And speaking of Hairspray, it was trending recently on TikTok.
The film?
The 2007 one. And did you ever get to interact with the actress? She was 13 at the time, who played Little Inez.
Yeah.
She seemed like a sweetie pie. And I remember watching that because I was around the same age as her. And
I just remember she was really smart.
Gosh, and her dance moves and her voice. And I was just like, wow, that she's really cool. Can I show you something?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm excited. So she was 13 when you guys filmed that. And she popped up on my feed on TikTok. And she redid her little dance from the movie.
Really?
Yes, and I just wanted to show you because she's all grown up, and the last time you saw her was she was 13.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to show you.
Come here, girl. This is my sister, Lil Inez.
Oh, I know Tracy Turnblad. Good for you, girl. You got on the show. Well, you better be nice. You got that right.
Oh, you know she is. You better show her, girl.
I'm tired of covering up all my pride. So give me 5 on the back and side. I got a new way of moving, and I got my own voice. So how can I help but to shout and enjoy? Oh, the people out here can barely pay their rent. They're trying to make $1 out of 15 cents. We got a spirit, but it just ain't bad. It's deep as a river, it goes to the sky.
Isn't that cool?
That's amazing.
Yeah, she recreated.
It's like no time's passed as far as her, like, it's like part of who she is. It's great.
Taylor Parks, she said in the caption as well, she redid her dance from when she was in Hairspray. She goes, I haven't done this since I was 13, but let me try.
Seriously?
Yeah, so that's so cool.
Wow. She's got it down.
We see you, Taylor. But is there anything else you'd like to add about like this experience makeup wise or just the experience overall?
The only thing that I would want to add is just that the environment on set from Garrett Grant and Adam Shankman and the two producers on down was always super collaborative, and everybody felt like they were part of this. And I think because of that, everybody was really invested in it. And because of that, everybody supported everybody else. It was like we were all put away in our own little bubble and doing this weird musical. And it was fantastic. It was really one of those things where the director of photography would come up to you and let you know what gel they're going to use, or Rita Rai, costume designer, would say, these are the fabrics I want to use for this scene, so that you knew that if you didn't punch up the reds in the whole thing in advance, John was going to look sickly. You know, I mean, everybody was sharing all the information that they needed to in order to help everybody else do their job well and to have everything look as good as it could. And the people that were in charge of the music and that whole side of it were on set all the time and sharing the music with everybody and just keeping everybody's spirits up. I mean, like when we did John's first makeup test there, he ran into a full rehearsal in the whole outfit and started singing and dancing, and everybody just like went nuts. I mean, everybody was always trying to like keep the energy going and keep everybody excited and motivated. And I thought that was really cool.
You say that a lot.
I know. I feel like I've been very lucky to work with people that are really invested and committed to making quality work. And I so appreciate it. I probably take it for granted at this point, but I've really had those experiences quite a lot.
I feel like we got to talk about a movie where it was like the opposite experience, just so people can be like, oh, that's what that's like, you know?
Yeah.
Which, don't worry, I can tell you all about it later this year or next year, depending.
Oh, there's one other thing too. before we did any makeup tests on location, we did a test at John's house. They rented a makeup trailer, parked it in his driveway in LA.
Okay.
And we went and we did the makeup there. And this was the very first time we'd done the makeup on him at all. And we figured out we wanted to like bring the neck in. There were a couple things that John wanted to do. There were a couple things that we wanted to do. We tried a couple different wigs on him. Yolanda had a couple options. One was blonde. We put him, I think, in a bathrobe and the blonde wig. We just had him talking to the camera as the makeup test. And then we filmed some of the process. And then we filmed him in a different look. And we shared that with the studio. And I think John was sharing it with people going, what do you think of this lady's screen test? To see if they would clue in on it or not. And he was experimenting as well with the Baltimore accent.
I left my iron on.
Yeah. And hun. And I that was a really fun thing too that really got us sort of excited about the project well in advance, and it helped us sort of fine tune what we wanted and gave us a goal to hit. And then when we got there, and then we had the support of the wardrobe department and everybody else, it's like everything just sort of ramped up a bit further.
Is there, it's hard to like give advice on makeup and stuff when what you're doing is so specific, but is there anything that like you learned in this process, or just that you've learned making so many bodysuits over the years, that if there are any SFX artists like getting into the business listening to this, that might be helpful as they maybe have to do their first bodysuit?
I think the most important thing is talk to the person who has to wear it. Make sure that they fully understand what is involved, so that they are mentally prepared for it. And if you can share examples, I think that that's really great. And also listen to them when they tell you, I'm on this show right now, but I'm going to start dance rehearsals for Hairspray in 2 weeks, and my thighs are going to change like this, and blah, blah, blah. People that have been in the business that are these chameleons, whether they're John Travolta or Matt Damon or anybody else who can change the way they look and know what it's going to look like, and can tell you that, they're telling you that for a reason, so that you can make it so that it fits them properly once they get to the target that they're shooting for. So then you're all on this road together, and it's just as new information comes up, keep sharing it with the talent. Like, this is going to weigh 10 pounds more than what we thought, or you're going to be blind from here down, or you will never be able to bring your arm to your side. If you want to get something out of your pocket, it's not an option. I mean, just sharing the info so people feel informed, even if it's not a big deal.
Right.
They feel part of the process.
Because you don't want an actor halfway through just really like not feeling like they were given enough information and they're really hating it. And
you don't want to surprise anybody.
Yeah. That's good.
It's like having to wear a uniform for a sport. You're the goalie. You're going to have these pads, and you can only bend so far. And there's these limitations. If you know that going in, you'll work towards that being a challenge, as opposed to, oh my God, I've got this huge obstacle. You'll figure out a way around it ahead of time.
Yeah, just another reminder to be positive and optimistic.
That's a big part of it.
My dad's very good at that. Am I? No. Like I look at stuff and I'm like, oh my God, we have all this stuff to do. And then he's like, okay, so let's take this as an opportunity.
Well, you just have to divide it up and
conquer.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. With that said, thank you guys so much for listening to our episode on Hairspray. Anything else you want to add, Dad?
Yes, there is. There is a gentleman named Jeff D. Paoli who is running an event in Salem, Massachusetts. It's halfway to Halloween, and it has a very specific title.
It's called Wicked New England. Yes, and I'm going to bring my phone up to read just a little bit more information. Wicked New England is a halfway to Halloween festival for those who can't wait for spooky season that's taking place on Saturday, May 3rd in Salem, Massachusetts at the historic Old Town Hall, seen in Disney's Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
This one-day event for the whole family features a curated market with vendors from all over New England and beyond selling their spooky and macabre merchandise. There will be stage presentations, haunted attractions, photo ops, monsters, and more. So if you live in the New England area next month, there will be a fun event for you guys to attend that was spooky themed. So we just wanted to make sure we gave a little shout out for people to know.
Yeah. And Jeff's cool. And tell him we said hi.
Yeah, and say hi to Jeff. You don't know what he looks like, but that's okay. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Flesh and Blood and Bone podcast, and we will see you guys next month.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.